Hey everyone, today I want to make a special video because today is my birthday and I turned 33 today. And I want to talk about the insights I have learned on my recovery journey, the tools I needed to apply, the myths I needed to debunk, and basically everything in between, all the confusion, all the relapses, all the backdoor spikes, all the times I thought I was recovered, yet still had a lot to work to do, especially when it came to unconditional self-acceptance, what I kind of put on the back burner, which can be difficult to apply because we end up forcing it. But the most important thing, and I hope we get this out there in an efficient way, is I'm going to be doing a free webinar. We are going to have 70 spaces. So basically first come, first serve. And I'm going to talk all about my journey, who I am, and the principles I apply to my life. I'm going to talk about everything from the values I hold on life and why those values aren't important to anyone but myself and why they're malleable and can change at any moment. The behaviors I take in my life, how I've reached to where I am today, how I recover from sensory motor OCD, how I've changed my perspective on body dysmorphia and conditional self-acceptance, and anything in between. So if you're interested in that free webinar coming up, which we'll probably do next week, please email info@ocdrecovery.com and we will get back to you in a timely fashion. Now, it's really funny. Before I started suffering with OCD, I never really thought much of my birthdays. I've actually never really thought too much about holidays. Today was a great example. Although it was my birthday, I had a lot of work to do with my job and doing everything in one-to-one calls and making content. It's later at night and I actually was a little bit tired and I wasn't really in the mood to make a video, but then I thought about the principle that I live my life by, that I am going to die one day, so it is important to me to do the things I don't always want to do because it adds to, as I heard a great quote one time, every time I go through a hardship, I think about it like a savings, and I put a little bit of that into a savings account, and it builds my grit. And as we would call that, it builds our frustration tolerance. So now, when I have a birthday or a life event, I'm much more grateful to be alive. I'm a big proponent of reading history. I think reading history in any time, in World War II, which I've been reading a lot recently, Auschwitz, Yomi Park's The Will to Live, North Korean defector who was on Joe Rogan's and Jordan Peterson's podcast, who's a human's rights activist, great stuff, and everything in between that. And those things really help shape my unconditional life acceptance. So looking at the brutal realities of life that we tend to forget when we're living in a blissful state, which is nobody's fault. It's something depending on where you're born, your culture, your economic background, your family structure. But sometimes it is very important to me to stop and realize all the things I have in my life that I took for granted, which is very easy to do in many different scenarios. So I want to go over multiple different principles, I would call them, that I live my life by, and I think these are very important. And the first one is that agreement doesn't mean acceptance. This is something you hear us talk about on the OCD Recovery channel quite frequently, and that is that no matter what happens in my life, it doesn't mean I don't have an emotion attached to that. It doesn't mean I don't get sad and sometimes a little bit angry or even cry. But I look at things in the reality of life that I can accept any condition, any situation, any person, no matter the act, no matter how bad, sometimes much more difficult than others, but I can work on that. And the principles that I have learned from Stoicism and other Greco-Roman philosophies and the principles from unconditional self-life, other acceptance, from Ellis, and other RABT principles have really been a tremendous thing for my life. They've given me great productivity, and productivity isn't everything. I'm just using that as an example. They've made me push through moments like this where I'm tired and I wasn't really in the mood to make a video, but I come on here and turn it on because it's very important for me to share this information with people. And one of my missions in life is to change OCD forever. I am on board with Rob on that. I will be making content and building this with Rob for the remainder of my life, and Moment and Phil and all the other moderators, new moderators, Gemma, and everyone else who makes videos. I'm very thankful to know all of you. When I tell people I get to speak to people all around the world, they're kind of fascinated by that because there's not many things where I get to speak to people that quickly. I mean, just to give you an example, just on Saturday in a quick 3 hours, I spoke to Singapore, England, and India. I mean, that is a very incredible thing. It's the power of communication through the internet, and it's been something I'm very grateful for. So Applying agreement doesn't mean acceptance to my life has brought down much of the anger, rage, and resentment I had towards situations in my life and other people. And that is something I'll practice for the remainder of my life. There'll be no perfect scenario where it becomes so locked in I never have to actively practice it. It's a much more instilled philosophy, but I still have to put the work in to see the changes. The second thing I want to talk about is something I contemplate on quite frequently, and that is something you hear in many different times, is that success in your OCD and anxiety recovery journey, success in your business, success in your relationship comes down to the boring work, the monotonous, boring work that seems so effortful at times, yet you don't want to do it. Showing up, I know it's a cliche statement, showing up when you don't want to, but there is some serious merit behind that statement. Showing up and doing the things that I don't particularly want to do, but I do them because they help me reach my goals. And even if I don't reach my goals, there's many goals I have and ambitions that I might not ever reach. And that's okay. That doesn't mean I don't put the work in. And it doesn't mean I don't make a conscious effort to change things. I know the cliche statement too, you fall off the horse 1,000 times, get back on 1,001. There is some extreme practicality in that, humbleness, realizing that nobody is perfect. No situation is perfect. Even if you believe it's perfect, it's only a perception that can be changed at any moment. Our beliefs are malleable. No belief that you hold right now, no matter how strong, cannot be changed. It cannot be worked on with Stoicism and the principles from Ellis with unconditional self-life and other acceptance. The third thing I want to talk about is my relationship. Now, I have read many Ellis books, but one of my favorite ones is the one I just read, which is called How to Stop People from Pushing Your Buttons. And there is a chapter in there called Spouses, the Ultimate Button Pushers. And there is an article in there that he posted and kind of revamped in his own unconditional self-life, other acceptance terminology, and came out to say that the things that make a relationship great are not the feelings that you feel. Yes, feeling in love. Yes, feeling almost this magical bliss state on a day, a wedding day, or a birth of a child is great. But those things cannot be caught. What a long-term successful relationship comes down to, in my opinion, is the ability to communicate and respect each other mutually. The respect, again, many people aren't going to respect this. I'm just saying how I see it. I try to give my wife respect. It's not always easy, even when I fail at that, and I try to work on that in the future. Realizing that hard work and commitment in my relationship has been one of the most difficult things in my life, since I have a perpetual failure to instant gratification. Many people have heard me talk about my addictions and other things I have struggled with. I'm safe to say I've been working on those for a long time, and they were some of the best things that ever happened to me to help me change the way I view the world and the way I change how I view intimacy in the relationship with my wife. I love my wife, but I don't think about my love with love with my wife in the way that many people make it out to be. And marriage is not for everyone. I know there's a lot of beliefs out there that say, oh, marriage is the best option. There are great things for marriage. There are pros and cons to marriage, and there are pros and cons to being single. There are pros and cons to having a baby. There's pros and cons to living with someone. There's pros and cons to having a secure job versus being an entrepreneur. Anyone that's giving you a black and white statement on something, such as a relationship, can be broken down. You don't need other people to listen to you. You can go for things. There's no such thing as the right relationship or the right time or the one or anything like that. If Erica passed away and I moved to another country, I might find a new one and give my vows again if I got married. Not something I want, but these are possibilities that happen in life. People pass away from unfortunate circumstances all the time. And that is something that really means a lot for me, is working at that in a way to where I'm not basing it off the way I'm feeling in the moment. The fourth thing I want to talk about is the importance of the OCD recovery community. I don't just mean our community. I mean anyone who's recovering from OCD, PTSD, GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, BDD, body dysmorphic disorder, panic disorder, any of the anxiety-based disorders, and personality disorders, and anything else in between, bipolar, schizophrenia, anything like that, severe cases of cancer, losing a limb, war, anything like that. The importance of realizing that there are many hardships in life, but I take those things and try to learn lessons from them. I try to push through and learn new lessons in my life. I'm a big proponent of lifelong education. If you're not a proponent of lifelong education, that's okay as well. I spent too much of my time, too much of my time trying to convince people of certain things to my own detriment. All I can do is provide information in things I go by in my life, and whether you disagree with them or agree with them is not the point. One of my favorite quotes by Rob is trying to be right is the small man's game. It's about learning to understand other people's perspectives, whether you agree or not, and that's where unconditional other acceptance really comes in. The fifth thing I want to talk about, and what was so important for my life, is realizing my own mortality and realizing the perfectionistic world we're living in with health obsessions. And I'm not just talking about the struggling with health OCD or health anxiety or hypochondriac or anything like that. I'm talking about how much we're trying to live forever. And there's great advancements and great technology. And I'm thankful for every researcher, every person pushing a field of trying to learn and push the boundaries of what humans are capable of doing. When I was in the gym today, I was watching new things from the X Games, and I couldn't fucking believe the shit that these people do. I watched a guy go over a huge motocross jump, go off his bike, and do a backflip. The bike didn't do a backflip. He did a backflip and then caught the handles. I was like, this is out of control. Humans are always pushing the boundaries, which is amazing. But sometimes when it comes to health, it could be their own detriment. Yes, sleep is important, but there are people who didn't have the opportunity to sleep in war zones in Vietnam and World War I and World War II and all the other catastrophes that happened in life. Look at Momen, the gigantic natural disaster with the flooding that happened a few months ago. I'm sure people were, but I didn't sleep my 8 hours. No, people come together during hardships, and they come together as one many times, and they push forward as a civilization and make changes. Yes, living a long, prosperous life is amazing, but many people will not have that opportunity. Yes, certain foods are healthier, but no food is inherently good or bad. There's only bad amounts. Exercise can certainly be overdone. There's no such thing as a healthy exercise addiction, no matter what anyone is telling you. Anything that is an addiction, whether it seems plausible in a healthy realm or not, is not good for you, in my opinion, because you are going outside the realm of balance and moderation. And as human beings, fallible human beings, we will not always be balanced and we will not always be moderated. Those 5 particular points I all just covered are so important in my life. And how I want to end this video is with the realities of OCD. It's very easy to see people talk about OCD in a lighthearted manner, but OCD recovery is difficult, it is challenging, it is confusing, it is hard, it is lonely at times, and this is why I make videos when I'm tired. This is why I keep up with my content, why I talk to sufferers in the WhatsApp groups, why I do weekly webinars, sometimes twice a week webinars, why I do one-to-one coaching, and why I spend a large portion of my life changing the way people view OCD. Even though I can't force any change on people, like I said before, I can still do my best, whether one person listens to me, whether no one listens to me, because I like fucking talking. So, which everyone knows, I really do like making people laugh and having a sense of humor. It's good to poke fun of ourselves. I was completely obsessed with my saliva for 3 years. That is absolutely hilarious. I couldn't see that in the time, but now it is funny when you look at the way OCD can latch in those weird ways. So it is good to make a joke. We don't have to hold animosity or resentment against people. If they make an OCD joke, let them make an OCD joke. It has no effect on my life whatsoever, nor does it have to have an effect on your life. The recovery journey has been one of the best things that's ever happened to me in my life. And I could say that through the confusion, the hardships, the mental hospital, the almost losing my wife, my video game addiction, my pornography addiction, my arrogance, my naive blindness to the realities of the journey. And this is the most important thing I learned. And this is the most important thing I like to talk about, because these principles, these hardships, as Jim Rohn said, one of my favorite quotes, hardship mixed with opportunity. It's read like that for the last 6,000 years. Many people will go through hardships. It's so easy to fall into the victim mentality. It's so easy to fall into self-defeating. We will all do it. We will all berate ourselves at times throughout the OCD recovery journey. It is difficult. There's chronic anxiety, changing symptoms with the confusion, chronic shame, chronic guilt, everything in between, depersonalization, derealization, 0 to 100 sensations, feeling as real as it can get, making some progress, then feeling like you've made no progress. All that comes together to reach the OCD recovery that looks nothing like this. It's not a linear journey, and it's not a non-linear journey. It's a hodgepodge of a web of everything that you don't want to experience, but you're more than likely going to experience. Thank you so much for watching my content. And remember, if you're interested in that free webinar when I'm going to dive deep into these things I talked about today, please email info@ocdrecovery.com and we will get back to you in a timely fashion. Thank you so much for all the support. Thank you so much, Rob, for the ability to give me a platform to speak about OCD recovery and teaching me the knowledge, the realities about sensory motor OCD, why the fear was keeping me stuck. Not be exposing myself to the sensation, but the fear being stuck forever, which we all have, that fear we talk about so much. Thank you to Gemma, Momin, Phil, every other moderator I've worked with, all of your knowledge, all of your backgrounds, every person I've come in contact with, even if it was only one time 3-4 years ago. I'm grateful for all of you. You've all helped me lead to where I am today. It's very meaningful. I'm very grateful. But it's always important to remember that the behavioral actions needed to change require consistency, persistence, discipline, and doing things we don't want to. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you again for all your support, and hopefully see you on the webinar. Have a good one, everyone.